What's up guys, Budget Media here. Do you guys want to make edits like this? And this? Recently, I've gotten a lot of comments on my TikTok videos of you guys wanting a tutorial on how to do these types of edits. So today we're going to go over stabilization and speed ramping. There are a few more features that I can teach you in the future, but to keep this video short and be able to explain everything as well as possible, we're going to focus on stabilization and speed ramping, which are two key features that you're going to use in basically every single edit. Okay everyone, the first thing we're going to do is open up Davinci Resolve. So I've gone in here and I've opened up a new project in Davinci Resolve and I've imported all of my clips. Now I'm going to make all of these clips available for you to edit so that you can, to download so that you can edit with me, but you can absolutely follow along with these steps with your own clips if you wanted to do so. So now we need to make a timeline. So what we're going to do is right click, go to timelines, create new timeline. We're going to name this whatever we like. And then we're going to uncheck use project settings. We're going to come over here to format and we need to set our resolution. So Instagram won't let you upload anything higher quality than 1080p. So this 1920 by 1080 is exactly what you would want. You want to check use vertical resolution because it's Instagram, and then, or TikTok. And then Instagram and TikTok both really like for you to use 30 frames per second. 24 frames is perfectly fine, but our footage is 60 frames per second. So 30 frames is perfect. It will allow us to slow some clips down, and we won't really lose any quality there. So now we don't need to mess with any other settings and we're going to click create. Now we have our timeline selected. We're going to get into the most useful feature, and probably the most crucial thing that you're going to learn for pretty much any edit that you want to do, and that is going to be proper stabilization. Now, there are a ton of stabilization methods out there. Planar Tracker is really easy to use and pretty good, but it just doesn't get you the same effect of a locked on center frame track. And I have spent a ton of time trying to figure out how to do this. And this was something that was really hard for me to find a tutorial on how to do. And now I'm happy to be sharing this with you guys because it was extremely difficult. So I'm going to use this clip here. This is clip 2695. If you are following along at home, I'm going to delete the audio clip from this because it's just car meet audio, just a ton of talking basically. But basically this is a clip of us just walking straight back from the car. Just close on the logo, pulling straight out. I'm going to trim off the end here because we weren't, that's when I was just standing before I ended the clip. So what I like to do here is trim off any fluff that I can. Maybe I was like shaky getting the clip set up. It's just easiest to have only the clip that you'd like to use when you stabilize here. And now what we're going to do is come into our Fusion tab here. And I'm going to get rid of that. We'll show you that later. But now that we're in Fusion, we're going to add 3 nodes. We're going to do Shift, Space, and we're going to look for a tracker node. So we're going to add 1 tracker node. We're going to hold Shift, and we're going to pull that off of our main clip here. And we're going to grab this square and bring it up to our tracker. So it should be connected to Median 1, but not to Media Out. That's very important. Next, we're going to shift spacebar and we're going to add 2 transform nodes. Now, depending on what you had selected, they may have come up here, but what you're going to want to do is hold shift and bring them down onto this line here. So you should see that they are both connected from median 1 straight to media out, and not connected to your tracker. Next, what you're going to do is we're going to track exactly what we want to put in the center of the frame. And if you are looking at a view like this, you can just click here and it will put this here in the middle of the frame. Now, a really cool tool here is if you right click and you do guides, show guides, you can kind of get an idea for what is already in the middle of your frame. If you're not planning to track something specific, like say you just wanted to make sure the clip was stable, and like this corner of the headlight happened to be in the middle of the frame, that would be a great way to kind of figure out where the center of your frame sort of is. But for this clip, I know that I want, regardless of where it ends up, I want this logo to be the middle. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to select tracker 1, and I'm going to select this little dot here, and that means that I'm looking at the output from tracker 1. And I'll show you why that's important. Say I was, for whatever reason, selected down here on this transform node, and say my center was offset like that. If I then selected tracker and started tracking, I'm not actually tracking the right spot, because if I was to show you the proper view of tracker 1, you see it's back in the center. So even though I thought I may have been tracking here, I was probably tracking something over here. So it's really important that you do this. It's a mistake you're probably going to make as you're first using these features, because I almost always forgot to switch views here. So with tracker 1 selected, we're going to add a point and we're going to get rid of IntelliTrack. I'm just not a big fan of IntelliTrack. I think this is a much better feature here. We're going to select adaptive mode and go to best match. I don't typically change these settings. It's not really too important. And now what we're going to do is track the center of this BMW logo. So this solid box here, I'm going to make pretty small. This is basically the information that you are tracking, with the center point being pinned obviously at the center of this square, and this dotted line is essentially where inside your Davinci is looking for this to be. So you want to make sure that you contain this to contain whatever you're tracking, but you don't want to make it too big, because if you make it super large, Davinci will try to track that entire thing, and it will take a very long time for your computer to render every single frame. So now that we have set our tracking point, I'm going to click this here, which is going to click forward 1 frame. And I'm going to click through a few frames and make sure that nothing crazy is happening. Sorry, we got a little ahead of ourselves there. I'm gonna make sure nothing crazy is happening and that our tracker is staying at the very center, or where I put it. Before that will let me know that my clip is basically tracking properly. And if it's not, I'm gonna have to make adjustments to either how I have this set up, or how I have something else set up to make sure that I can absolutely track the center reliably. All right, so now that I know that my clip is tracking properly, I'm going to hit this, which is going to track to end, but I'm not going to let it track all the way to the end, and I'll let you know why. Once I click this button, I'm going to let it track for a little while, and I'm monitoring here to make sure that it's still tracking where it should, and then I'm going to hit stop and hit yes, and that's essentially going to lock in these frames here. And the reason that I do that is especially on a clip like this where we started in close and we pulled out, as you can see, my box is no longer on this little black circle here. It started to pull out, which can sometimes start to confuse your tracker, because if it thinks that something else looks like what you told it to track, it will jump all over the place. So what I like to do is track to end and then stop it early, especially if it didn't get messed up. And then what I can do is adjust my tracking window to stay centered again. And now I didn't move this point. I just moved the box to a smaller section, because essentially my logo is getting smaller as I pull out on the frame. And then I will do this over and over again until the entire thing is tracked. If you were tracking to end and say your logo or your tracking box popped off, no problem, just hit stop, Control Z, maybe adjust your box, the tracking box, and go ahead again until you can get this tracked. Now this is one of the most tedious parts of editing, and I'm going to let this one run all the way through so we can see if it does do what I was talking about, where it gets a little bit confused. It looks like we're going to get pretty lucky here. Yep, so we tracked all the way to the end, but it wouldn't be a problem if it did jump off. We would just go back and adjust. Now I'm going to come to this part of the clip where I started, because I started in the middle of my clip. I'm going to adjust my box again because I had shrunk it down, but now we're going to track the other way on this clip, and it's no problem to start in the middle of the clip like I did. That's completely normal. So now I'm going to track backwards, and we're going to pull in, and I'm keeping an eye on here to make sure that it's tracking where I want. You can see that we strayed a little bit from the center, but if you really look at it, that is such a small amount, I'm not really going to adjust that right now unless it does look bad on my clip. This task here of tracking this is like the most important thing you can do for any edit. This is going to make sure that you have perfectly smooth footage, and it's super pleasing to look at when whatever you're trying to look at stays in the very middle of the frame. So spending a lot of time here, especially on every clip, even though it can take hours, is very, very important. What I'm gonna also do, sorry, not on this frame. Now we have finished our tracker. So what we're going to do is come down to transform 1, and we don't need to switch our viewput because we're basically doing nothing to this frame aside from right-clicking here on center, coming to connect to tracker 1 steady position. And what we just did was we basically said that we want to connect the center of our frame. If we scroll through, you can see our center point changing. We're connecting the center of our frame to the points that we selected in our tracker, the keyframes from our tracker. Now what we're going to do is come to this transform 1 node, and we're going to pin this logo directly in the middle of our frame. And to do that, we're going to come here, we're going to come to pivot, and we're going to move this X until it lines up in the direct middle of our logo or whatever we decided to track. Now we're going to come over here to center, and we're just going to move it until it is in the center of our frame. I always recommend putting the tracked point in the very center of your frame. You can put it, along this line if you wanted it to not be in the dead middle, but what can happen, especially when you speed ramp, or if it's like a pan or something, it can start to look like it's getting off center or it's not pinned in the middle of your frame, and that's because you're not right in the middle of what Davinci thinks is the center of your frame. And one last thing I'm going to do is I can tell that my footage is just a little bit crooked, so I'm going to change my angle, probably put -1 degree on it. Yep, that got it pretty level. That's actually super, super level there. So that's perfect. So now we have tracked this frame and we have put the logo at the middle of our clip here. So one quick thing, once you start putting a lot of these effects on your clip, you're going to want to right click and come here, render cache fusion output, select on, and come to playback and select render cache user. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you this red and blue bar up here, and it allows your computer to pre-render your clips so that your playback is smooth. Because what can happen when you start putting a lot of features on these clips is they start getting a little bit choppy. So now we can see that our logo stays perfectly in the middle of our frame no matter where that we're at. But to do so, Davinci is literally moving our clip left and right and up and down on our clip to make sure, and that's where you're seeing these bars come in. It's moving it up and down, left and right to keep the logo at the middle. So what we want to do is zoom in on our clip here until we don't see those bars. And this is where your filming comes into play. You're going to want to film in 4K, even though we're going to be uploading finally in 1080p. When you film in 4K, it will allow you to zoom in without losing quality. You can zoom in about 2 times before you start to lose quality. So now that we've zoomed in here, you can see we don't get those black bars and our clip is perfectly tracked. And I can tell right around here is when I stopped walking. So about there, I'm going to just cut the end of this clip off so I don't have to deal with that. So now we have a clip that's basically all the way in, all the way out. So in itself, that's going to help you a ton editing wise. Just being able to get perfectly smooth footage. Regardless, this was filmed with a gimbal, and I will be happy to make more videos in the future. I have tons planned, but I'll be happy to make videos on how to film, proper movements, camera settings, all that sort of thing, gear. But this was filmed with a gimbal. However, using this method of tracking, as long as you practice how to walk smoothly and perfectly, you can get really smooth clips like this just with a handheld camera or even an iPhone. You can use an iPhone to get some really smooth clips. But now we're going to work on the speed ramp, because this video is going to be stabilization and speed ramping. Sorry if I sound a little bit rough here. I've been a little under the weather recently. But what we're going to want to do is make a new Fusion clip. So we're going to right click, new Fusion clip. And the reason we're doing that is if you click this Fusion tab here, you can see now we have our tracker and our transform tabs are gone. If you were to do that before we made a new Fusion clip, you would be seeing those again, but we want to do more Fusion effects on top of the ones we've already done without changing the ones that we've already done. So it gave you this new Fusion clip here. All that is just basically it pre-rendered that clip and put it back into your effects library. If you want to go back and color grade this clip, all you will need to do is right click, open in timeline, and it will bring you to the clip where you can color grade and add all of your color grading nodes, which will be a different video that I cover in the future. But if you come back here and you come back to your timeline, you're back to editing this Fusion clip. You're going to click Fusion. Okay, so now that we're here in this new Fusion tab, we're going to do Shift Spacebar and look for a time stretcher. And we're going to add that to our nodes here, straight in line with our median one and media out. Now there's a ton of ways to do this, to do speed change. Now you can do speed change here, you can do the retime curve, and you can change your speed here, but the best way is to go through Fusion and use our time stretcher like I'm about to show you. Those other ways don't give you as much control, and you'll see here in the near future why this is so much better, especially if you've tried to use the other ones in the past. Now, with time stretcher selected, you want to make sure that you first add it to your clip when your marker is at 0. Now you're going to come to the end, and you're going to take this number, which is how many frames are in your clip, and you're going to come up here to source time and do that number there. After setting your source time here at the end of your clip to what the end of your clip amounts to, you're going to come to spline here. You're going to show your spline, and you're going to select time stretcher. Then if you hit this little box here, that's going to zoom to fit. This is going to be one of the most powerful tools that you find in basically all of Davinci Resolve. This spline editor allows you to basically take a node that you're working on here and adjust how those adjustments show up in your final clip, being how smooth, whether it starts fast, slows down, speeds back up. It'll allow you to basically ramp not just your speed. Today we're working on a speed ramp, but in the future when you're working with like DVE or just basically any movements like a zoom, anything like that, it will allow you to adjust so that your zoom looks much more natural and fluid, not just, you know, we start zooming this fast, we finish zooming this fast. It will allow you to, maybe you come in zooming real soft and it starts to speed up gradually. It basically allows you to adjust your clip however you'd like. But here I'm going to explain what this graph is that you're looking at, because it can get quite confusing, especially when you're trying to figure out how this affects your clip in the final form. So basically what you're looking at here is this vertical line is the frames of your original clip. So we set our clip to 288 frames. So this point here, which is the end, this is the start of our clip, this is the end of our clip. This point here should be vertically 288 frames long. Now, this point here is basically your final clip output time. So how long your clip is in this view here. So again, it's going to be 288 frames right now because we haven't sped up or slowed down our clip at all. So it is exactly 288 frames from point A to point B, both vertically and horizontally. But now, if we want to speed our clip up, we're going to take this and we're going to drag it to, say, around 50 frames, keeping it at the same height here, meaning that I'm playing my entire clip but only in 50 frames, so it will be much faster. Now, during that, sorry, I bumped a button on my, my mouse here. During that, if I were to have held Control, it will allow me to keep that exactly at the top. I don't typically do that because I'm going to lose a frame or two. It's not going to cause really a big issue. But if I were to come here and I were to allow this clip to render real quick, again, if you have a faster computer than I do, you might not have to wait for it to render, but me and my 3060 Ti gotta wait a little bit. Not a big issue. You can see our clip is significantly faster. But I actually would like that to speed up a little bit more. So I'm gonna move that probably to about there. I'm gonna hit zoom to fit one more time. I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna hit zoom to fit one more time. Now this is where it can look a little bit deceiving because it looks like our line is exactly the same again, but looking at our frame numbers here, we can very clearly tell that we have sped this clip up. But this isn't a speed ramp. This is just speeding up our clip. We want to now add a speed ramp. And what that means is we're actually changing during this speed, we're changing the speed of our clip through this clip. And we're making it very smooth. So to do that, if you select one of these points, you'll get another point out here that when you hold Control, you can adjust that point to change basically the arc of this time stretcher. Now, if you take a second to think about it, I always have to sit and kind of think what shape I'm looking for. Since this line here is frame of actual clip, and this line is how many frames of our final clip, that will tell you basically how fast your clip's going to be in certain sections. And what I mean by that is the more vertical your line is, the faster your clip is going to play. And the more horizontal your line is, say I were to do this, the slower your clip is going to play. So if we were to look at this clip here, basically what we're going to see is it's going to play very fast because in 5 frames we've gone about 125 frames, and then from frame 5 to frame we'll just call it 25. So for 20 frames, we only came up maybe 20 frames again. So what happens is we're gonna speed up very fast, we're gonna slow down a ton because this is very horizontal, and then we're gonna slowly ramp back out until we've sped up quite a bit again. So if we go look at this clip, again, I'm gonna have to let this render. That is a really good looking speed ramp, and you're gonna want to slow this, basically trim the end of your clip off. And what I usually do is I'll just come to here, put my marker on the end of this clip. That'll show me where I'm at here. This marker is moved when you move the marker in here as well. But I really like this speed ramp. Basically, we're gonna pull out, slow down, get a look at the car, and then pull back out. But what if this is not the type of speed ramp you're looking for? That's totally fine. I would recommend going online and looking up popular speed ramp shapes, because that's going to help you and your creativity quite a bit. I would recommend just trying some different shapes, but I'll show you a few options here. So say we wanted to just slowly come out, real slow, real slow, real slow, and then gain speed. That's what we're looking at here. So again, I'll let this render real fast. So our clip is going to start real slow and then it'll pull out. Now this is a really cool look, but if you want to combine it, if you hold Control, you can zoom out on this. If you want to combine it with something else that will make this type of speed ramp look really good, I'm going to slow this down here, just like this, and I'll explain what this speed ramp is going to do. So if we take a look at this, what can we think is going to happen? We're going to start slow, we're going to speed up, we're going to kind of taper off and slow down, and then what happens is we start coming down our frame count here, and what that's going to do is play our clip in reverse. So this type of way of speed ramping using the time stretcher is extremely powerful, because if I wanted to, I could go back and go back forward and go back forward, and I can make this clip as long as I want, flipping it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and basically control whether I zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, and you can put all of those elements into one time stretcher. So you'll have to sit and just carefully work through that effect. But what I'm also going to do is I need to extend my clip because previously I cut it. So I'm going to come to the end of my clip, come out here, you see that's out here. I'm going to just extend my clip. And now we can take a look at this speed ramp. We may want to tweak some things depending on how it looked. Just give it a moment to render. But now we came out and in. Now you may want to tweak other things as well, like this will probably look better, to be honest, if we do that, which what it's doing is it's going to, as it approaches fully zoomed out, slow down much more. It'll spend much more time at its fully zoomed out position, and then it'll speed back in, and that's going to look a lot better. It will make it look less jarring, like we pulled out and slammed back in. And let that render for a moment. So you see we came out, we kind of paused out here, and then we came back in. All right, and the very last thing that I want to go over is export settings. Now, I'll go over this pretty much every time, just because people ask frequently. But we're gonna come over here to our export tab. File name, you can set that to whatever location, you can set that to wherever you'd like it to go. And then here's what's been working great for me. I'll set the format to QuickTime, codec I'll set to 265. Resolution, this time we're going to use timeline resolution because we want it to come out as 1080p. If you wanted 4K for whatever reason to upload somewhere else, you could absolutely set that to 4K, but we're going to leave it. Quality here, we're going to set our rate control to a constant bit rate. That is key to getting a very crisp and clear footage for TikTok and Instagram. Preset, you can leave this at medium. I typically set it to very slow. And then tuning all set to ultra high quality. You'll see here when I do that, this quality tab gets this restrict to tab. I usually leave it at 80,000. If you wanted to get a slightly smaller file size, you could drop it down to like 60,000. You don't want to go much lower than that though, because you will start to get lose quality as soon as you start to do that. There is a fine line to skirt here. The larger of a file that you're trying to upload to TikTok or Instagram, the more it will try to compress it if you exceed a certain amount of data. However, especially for short, like 20-second edits, this has worked amazing for me. And then we will just add that to render queue. Again, it'll ask you to pick somewhere to save it. You can replace, I have this named something the same, but you can just hit yes, it'll come up over here, you'll click render, and it will save your footage. So that's the best way that I've found to export my footage. I'll go over this in most of the videos, but in case you wanted to make your own edit with the skills you learned today, I didn't want to leave you guys high and dry without a way to export your footage. All right, and that is going to wrap up our video here. So obviously you're going to want to time these effects with a audio clip, whether that be your speed ramp comes out and comes back in on a beat drop, or you hit a transition. The best way to do transitions is going to be to speed ramp your clip so it speeds up right at the end, and then the clip that you're transitioning into, you want to start it fast and have it transition in. That way your speed seems fluid all the way through. It makes a really crisp and clean transition. But I really appreciate you guys watching this video. As I stated earlier, I will be making more videos in the near future showing how to do the next of these effects that I have done in the edits that I showed here in the intro. But I didn't want to make it too long. I wanted to give as much information as I possibly could because I, in the past, had a hard time finding tutorials where they really explain how all these features work. They kind of just gloss over you know, how to do the effect that they specifically want, but they don't really go into detail on how to actually use the fundamentals of the effect so that you can kind of tweak it and change it to how you would like it to work. So I was trying to skirt that fine line between making a really long video and actually fully explaining how everything works. So I hope it wasn't too boring. I hope you guys stuck around. I really appreciate all the love I've been getting on my Instagram and TikToks. If you don't follow me or don't know what I'm talking about, you found this video somehow else, I would really appreciate a follow. It is budget.media on both TikTok and Instagram. And then on YouTube, it's budget_media, and I'll have it up on the screen so that you can see. But that stuff really helps me make new videos. It helps keep me motivated to want to show you guys more tutorials and how to do that sort of thing. And I really appreciate everyone sticking around and watching. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you on the next one.